this is Lee back once again for another video, and finally I'm ready to do my three-way triple threat comparison video. Here where I'll talk about comparing WWE video games, 2K14 for the Xbox 360, followed by the sequel, 2K15, and then 2K16. And this is for nerds, if you will, geeks, whatever, fanatics, players of these games who are maybe interested in the differences that I've noticed. Maybe if you're on the fence about what game to purchase or to play, I'll point these things out to you, just things I've noticed. And this is by no means an exhaustive comparison, but these are the things that occur to me and may matter to you. Now, as far as the games go, here's my copy of WWE 2K16 for the Xbox 360, no next gen here. This, of course, was a rental from GameFly, and I'll be returning this fairly soon through the mail. This is not a sponsorship of any kind, but that's how I obtained that copy. Also, I have my purchased copy from the store of 2K14, which actually I will say is the best of these three games. I'll get more into that in a moment. Of course, you can see the very boring disc art cover, everything. But anyway, this is the North American version, of course, with each of these. And my copy of 2K15, I have to say, I've returned it to the store. Actually, I found it much cheaper. And I just feel bad about spending so much money on a game like that. First of all, I'm going to make some announcements here. You may be aware of this, but it states very clearly, but it's hidden in the tiny little fine print of the game manuals, which of course you may not have access to if you get the game used, but these manuals are featured online in PDF format, provided by 2K Games. 2K14, and it may say this in the Xbox dashboard, is no longer supported online. The online services were terminated. On November 1st, 2015, this year. Very sad. I played it up until the end, as much as I could anyway. I think it went on a couple more hours after I had my last big game. But this game was supported online for about 24 months, give or take. And they announced this, that they would be ending support, I think around November, October. Of course, it says in the fine print they reserve the right, with 30 days notice, to terminate it sooner or later, change the terms. But anyway, the manual for 2K15, which I can't show you because it's digital, of course, 2K15 did not come with, well, none of the games came with an extended manual. Only 14 has an extended manual online. It's 53 pages. The 15 and 16 manuals are about 20 pages, and most of that is the credits for the game and the legal agreement and so forth. Not very much about the actual gameplay. So look at the 14 manual for the other two. Anyway, so 14 has already ended. If you buy the game now, with a digitally or digital versatile disc, you can only purchase the shop items online, so you can get some characters. The season pass includes basically just a bunch of alternate attires and a few other wrestlers that are not provided, a bunch of moves, and then let's see, some taunts, the accelerator, and that's pretty much it. There's no extra single-player content. Of course, the single-player is very excellent. I'm getting ahead of myself here. 2K15, in the manual, it says that online support for the game will continue through, or be ended on, May 2016. So mark your calendars. May of 2016. 2K15 for the Xbox 360, probably PlayStation 3 also, will be terminated and no longer supported. That doesn't mean that you can't get the DLC that you have to buy, but the online servers, so multiplayer over the Xbox Live Internet service, and the community creations, downloads and uploads will be gone, wiped out, because with 2K14 you can't access that stuff anymore. So May 2016, no more 2K15. I don't know if that's the first of the month or the last hour of the last day of the month, but there you go. So 15 is actually supported less than 14. You can do the math there. Each of these games comes out in October, the year before the year on the cover, so to speak, because 14 came out in 13, and 15 came out in 14, and 16 came out in 15. There you go. Well, 2K16, it says in the little manual very clearly, May 2017. May of 2017. So it's supported less than 14. So there you go. So don't expect it to be online after that. But you can check the 2K Games Twitter feed, Twitter page. The 2K Games support website doesn't always have up-to-date information. It's missing a lot of things, which is rather strange. But I guess everyone uses Twitter now, so if you check on there and search for, online support, online servers, server status for 2K, WWE 2K, you will see when they say it's going down, or if it's going down 30 days. At any time. They could announce right now that it's going down in 30 days. That's all they've promised to do. But May 2017, no more 2K16. And the thing about these games is that they have no LAN or system link support. So don't expect X-Link Kai, that free community out there, to be able to support these games online. The only way you'll be able to play multiplayer is, of course, sitting around at your console with your controllers and your friends. And of course, each of these games offers up to 6 wrestlers in a match. But those 6 players can only be done online. So if you're playing offline, you can only have up to 4, and then you have to have 2 computer-controlled or AI CPU characters. So just bear that in mind. Now, not all of the offline matches are available online, of course, but I'm going to stick to talking about the online experience for these 3 games. So, without further ado, if you've played 14, you know what the game is all about, and I'm going to do maybe a little longer review of it later on. If you've been following the 2K or WWE series, starting with WWE SmackDown back in the day, I think about 15 years ago now, you'll notice, a lot of things have changed over the years. Not just the roster, but the matches and everything, animations and whatever. But 14 was a very good game, I thought. Well, 15 changes some things. Now here we go to the changes. I noticed that apart from the menus looking different, 2K15 did not allow you to listen to the wrestler entrance music during the menus. Like, let's say you're creating a character, you can't listen to a playlist of the wrestler entrance music. However, you do get these pop songs. You get a short playlist of some licensed music, which will get you a copyright flag on your YouTube video if you have too much of that on there, unfortunately. So that got some people annoyed. You can disable that music so you have silence. Of course, you can always listen to your own Xbox music on your console, any music that you've purchased or ripped from CDs, but the music selection is a little less. Now, of course, once a match starts, that music stops. So you will hear your entrance themes during the wrestler, introductions, as you always do. One thing about 2K15 is you cannot use a user playlist or custom music track for your wrestler entrances. Many people know that, but that's one of the few features that is removed from 14 to 15. So 15 no longer has that. Also, 2K15, you can no longer create a story. Now, there are stories in the game, these little cutscenes with little interactive branching choices, and text, with the animations. These cutscenes are featured in universe mode, in 2K14 you could create your own, and you could upload those to community creations, and you could download the stories others had created, and you could edit those created stories yourself too. Well, 15 removes all that. There's no created stories. You only have the default stories that are built into the universe, or used to be called General Manager mode. So there you go, some loss of creativity there. Now in 15, I believe there were a couple of extra logos. The WWE World Wrestling Entertainment, they hardly ever say that anymore, that logo has changed. In 15, they debuted this new logo, kind of a straight up and down WW, like a little upside down crown, or kind of like other company logos. But anyway, that was the first time anyone saw that. Of course, now it's on the television program and so forth. So that new logo can be used in the game. I believe there's a couple portraits of to reflect the new roster, that sort of thing. But very little has changed. The creation suite is pretty much identical. You can do just as much and just as little as you could before in 14. So that's all the same, all the creations. You still get 100 slots for created wrestlers, 50 for created arenas, and about, I think, 20 for created logos. I forget how many created belts you could have, but of course you have to use custom logos for those if you want to put a new texture on the belt, which you can only use offline. Anyway, enough about that. 2K15, let's see, what else is different? Well, the roster, of course. The downloadable content, of course, is different. Some wrestlers have been removed, some have been added. A lot of the legends are no longer there. Actually, many of the legends in 2K15 are part of DLC packs. And these DLC packs, the vast majority of them are single-player missions. Now, 2K15 single-player, which I don't want to go into great depth about, focused on NXT. You had, I think, 5 NXT at the time wrestlers. One of them has, I think, retired from WWE product entirely. I think 2 others have gone to the no, I think it was 4, yes. 2 have gone on to the main WWE roster. 1 has quit entirely, and 1 is still in NXT. But you have these short 4 or 5 match single player campaigns for each of these characters, and at the end you do Proving Ground, where you fight an overpowered version of John Cena, which is just like the streak mode in WWE 2K14 against The Undertaker, except I think there's a time limit and you get counted out outside the ring, but otherwise it's basically the same. And once you've beaten him with all of those characters, you can play him with anyone and upload your score to the leaderboards. That's one thing that remains on 2K14, is that you can still upload, well, it automatically uploads your high score if you beat The Undertaker and beat the streak, or if you survive long enough in defend the streak. There is a leaderboard for that single player every week. Every week it gets reset. But there's nothing else. You can't view the leaderboards for matches that you won against other players, unfortunately. Well, 2K15 makes another change. Well, of course, there's the single player, yes. Very uninteresting to me, personally. I mean, NXT is fine, but I just have very little interest in playing it as part of the game with these very limited selection of stars. There's no My Career mode. The ballyhooed, My Career mode for the next-gen versions, which sounds like the best part of those games, because there isn't much else there. 2K15 very stripped down on the next-gen consoles, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm sticking to the 360 versions. So very little has changed in 15. I did notice that, let's see, in the community creations for Xbox Live, so until May 2016, when this was shut down, you can, you have ranks, creator ranks, and you start out with the ability to have only 5 slots for uploaded content. So if you created a wrestler, an arena, you can't upload screenshots anymore. That's something you could do in 14. You can't upload stories because you can't create them. You also, I should say, you can't create custom finishing moves or special moves or custom signature moves. Of course, you can change what moves your character has, but you can't create new ones. There's no animation, studio thing for creating that, which means you can't upload them either. I'm guessing they probably removed this to try to limit the ability of people to cheat online, but it didn't work. People still cheat, and I'll get into that in a moment, but after I've said this, Community Creations allows you 5 slots to upload materials, and once you've uploaded those 5 things, you can't upload any more. Now let's say you want to change one of those slots. You have to delete from your queue, upload queue, if you will. Now it doesn't delete it from your computer, it just deletes it from the thing. So let's say you had, I'm just going to make up a crazy example, let's say you had 5 versions of John Cena. Of course, John Cena's on the cover, is heavily promoted in 2K15. Let's say you wanted to put 5 versions of Cena on the Community Creations. Let's say you change your mind and you want to upload a version of The Undertaker. Well, you'd have to remove one of those John Cenas and put up The Undertaker. So now people can't download the one that you removed, because there's only 5 at a time. And that's considered the bronze rank. So there's Community Creations ranks. So you may be wondering, well, how do I go up a rank? Well, you have a limited set of downloads as well. You can only download 10 things every time. Get both hands. So you can download 10, that includes, the arenas and the custom superstars and also divas. Logos. So you get those things, and once you have 10, you have to wait 24 hours. There's a little clock before it resets, and then you can download 10 more. Now the thing is, if you want to increase that number from 10, you have to have people download your created content that you've uploaded. So if people download your uploads, your download count increases. There's a little bar that keeps track, and it's a very long bar. I've had, I think, maybe 16 downloads, and in 16. I haven't actually done much with 15 yet, but you have to download, I think, maybe I'm not even sure the number, let's say 100. Let's say you get 100 downloads. Well, theoretically, your rank would increase from bronze to silver? I don't know. So there's a diamond rank. I'm not sure how many ranks total, or how many that allows you. Is diamond unlimited? Is diamond 100? What is it? But the details say that your rank will increase by 5. So let's say you go from bronze to, I don't know what it is, silver? Whatever the next rank is. Let's say that gives you, instead of 10 out of 10 downloads per day, you get 15 of 15. And then it goes up by 5 more at gold? I'm not sure. Ruby, emerald, platinum? I'm not sure. But it goes up by 5 each time. And you have to get a certain number of downloads. Now, the thing is, if you remove something, those downloads are still kept. So let's say you had your John Cena, 100, you got 100 downloads. Not reviews, downloads. So you got 100 of those, and then you removed it and replaced it with the Undertaker, custom that you made. Well, those 100 downloads would still be on the record. So you could keep swapping things out. And I'll get to that in a moment, because in 16, sometimes people mislabel things. They create fake, creations to try to get attention, try to get people to just download it, and then they realize, oh, it's just garbage, it's nothing, just to increase their rank. But I noticed there's a little secret, a little glitch. I think it's present in both 15 and 16. It's the first time you go to Community Creations, and of course, most players don't know this. The first time you go in and start downloading, it lets you download as much as you want. So you could download all 100 wrestlers, all 50 arenas, all 20 logos. But then if you exit it out and come back on to Community Creations, all of a sudden it's saying, oh, you've downloaded all 10, so you have to wait 24 hours. And then the next time you'd only be able to download 10. But just keep that in mind. So if it's your first time, just go crazy. Download everything that you want. Just bearing in mind that the next time you're going to be limited. So of course with 14 I had many discs worth. I think there was like 5,000 pages of Community Creations. Of course I didn't get everything, but just the best, the things that I liked. Well, 15 there's about, I'm trying to think now, I've probably said it in the other video how many, let's say 1,000 of pages. And then for 16, there's about 500 pages. Of course, that may change, depending on when you watch this video. So the Community Creations ranking system. And so I'll talk about when I get to 16 in my review here. I'll talk about those changes. Well, what else is different in 15? Well, some of the animations for the wrestlers that are still in the game have changed. Now, of course, the overall attributes, the abilities, the attires, even the models for these wrestlers have changed. Now, most of that's visual, but some of it is balancing issues. So John Cena might be a little bit stronger than he was before. Things like that. So, just something to very minor, but in 2K15, when you're playing online, or offline too, I suppose, now if you have the Extreme Rules ring, which is basically just the regular standard wrestling arena ring, except that when you go under the ring, a little wheel appears and shows you what weapons you can choose. If it's not an Extreme Rules ring, you just pull out a chair, a sledgehammer, whatever it happens to be. Well, unless you choose the weapons, well, you'll notice the baseball bat weapon is now black. And the reason they did this is because in 2K15, Sting, the icon Sting, famous in WCW and TNA, finally appeared on WWE, and he appeared actually in the game as a downloadable content, exclusive, whatever, paid character before he even appeared on the show, the program, where he had some matches against Triple H and Seth Rollins and was injured. But anyway, so you have Sting's baseball bat. No other change, really. It's just black instead of, wood-colored. So there you go. What else is different in 15? Well, gameplay-wise, some of these animations are different. So maybe like, you have a character that does, quick suplex move. Well, now maybe the character, takes his time to, grab the opponent and slowly lift them. It takes a little longer. So they may have done this to try to slow down the pace of the match or try to appear more realistic. Well, maybe it gives, if it's tag team or something, a group match, it gives someone an opportunity to get away or to, counter the move, break the partner out of the move, perhaps. But otherwise, the movement speed, everything else is pretty much the same. Now, some players have commented and said, well, it seems like it's easier to reverse moves in 2K15, because you always hit the right trigger on the Xbox 360 controller, and a little white box, or a little, appears. If you hit it at the right time, it says reverse, and it reverses the move. If it's too fast, it's a little red, too fast, like you failed. If it's too late, it's yellow, or too late, or too slow. Well, anyway, it seems like I can reverse things just a little tiny bit better. And there may be a couple of factors. It may be because, when I was playing 2K14, that was some time ago, so I'm a better player now, and maybe just more skilled. It also may be that because, 2K14 was towards the end of its life, they may have been cutting down the servers, and there may have been more lag, making it more difficult, to kick out of pins, certainly, because lag can affect that, the little bar. But also the reversals themselves, just to know when to reverse. But since the timing of so many of these moves has changed because of the animations, you have to kind of get used to it all over again. But it didn't take me long to figure it out. Sometimes, of course, you may be just facing someone who is a very powerful character. Maybe you have a weaker character, and they may just be really, really good. And some of the good players, they'll take forever because they know that you are about to reverse their move, so they'll kind of hit you. Hesitate. Okay, now they hit you. And the next time they just hit. Because and keep you guessing because you don't know when it's going to be reversed. So if you hit it at the wrong time, well, they have a chance to hit you again and again and again, and it goes on. But I just found that in 2K15, for whatever reason, maybe it's better servers, or maybe my own skill, or maybe they have tweaked the game slightly. It seems just a little bit easier to reverse moves. So there you go. And kicking out of pins is about the same. Towards the end of 2K14's run, there was a day when they took the servers down for about 3-4 days. When they came back on, it seemed like it was a little bit easier to kick out of pins. So it's possible that they tweaked the game slightly, patched it, if you will, and that fixed that. Or maybe the servers were just slow and they sped them up. But in any case, just a little bit extra touch there. Another thing in 2K15 is that, of course, if you're playing online, you have a little microphone symbol floating above the character's head if the microphone is plugged in. Well, this, microphone thing has these little dots that are flashing. And I think that's, I'm not actually sure what that means. I used to think, well, it means that they're speaking. But at other times, it'll turn a color. It'll turn kind of a greenish color. And I know there's two ways to communicate there. On Xbox Live with your little headset, similar to this one that I've got here, but not exactly, is that you can be in a game chat, meaning whatever you say, assuming you're not muted, the other players can hear through their TV speakers, even if they don't have a microphone plugged in. But then there's also party chat. So you could be in a Xbox Live, party, which of course you have to have a gold subscription to use, just like if you want to play online matches, you have to have a gold Xbox Live Gold subscription. It's about $60 a year. If you buy that, you can also pay by month or 3 months at a time. It's the cheapest if you get the long term. But anyway, that's not an advertisement. It's just a fact there. You could be in a party chat talking to someone else about something totally different, and you would not be hearing the game conversation at all. Anything you say, the people in the game won't hear it unless they're in that party. And tag teams often do this, clans. In other games they call them guilds or leagues, but these clans, these people that get together, any group of players, and just say, we're in a clan, and maybe they'll change their put a tag. So, the ABC clan, ABC Johnson, ABC Stevenson, all these characters. That's totally made up, by the way. They could be talking to their clanmates and strategizing, and you'd never hear it. So it's possible that those icons indicate something there. One nice feature in 2K15 that 14 didn't have is that when you're playing in an online match, instead of, let's say, myself and my opponent, our two characters, and let's say I'm the Undertaker and he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, when I'm walking around, there's a little targeting indicator above my head saying, Austin, and he would see Taker. You would see your opponent, but the name of the character. But in the game, you may forget who you're playing. So if you're playing, against, ABC Stevenson, and he's controlling the Undertaker, you would just have to remember that because you'd only see his name at the beginning of the match before it loads up, and at the end of the match when it shows your points, your prestige points. For ranked matches, for player matches, there's no points, no wins or losses are tallied. It's just, you just play for fun. Well, what 2K15 did is it put the gamer tag, the player name. So if your name was ABC Stevenson, that text would be floating above your head. And I think in the menu you can shut it off, but even during the entrances, the character entrances, it shows that text at the top of the screen, a little heading, over on this side. And it'll show a little microphone icon. So that just helps. So let's say someone's cheating, which unfortunately there's a lot of cheating in 2K15, just as there was in 14, at least in the last year. To report that person. You're not going to report the wrong person, or, forget who's who, forget who your teammate is, if you've got a computer on the team. So it just helps you keep track of things just a little bit easier. Maybe you played something that you really like, and you want to add that person as a friend, or give them a good review, player review, a preferred player, as opposed to an avoided player. There's all kinds of little things that helps with. So that was just a nice little thing they added. I do like that change. But beyond that, what else has changed, really? All the match types are the same. The roster, of course, a little different, but most of the same main wrestlers are there. So not a lot else, really, to cover. There are just a couple of other small things. Now, I have to explain, first of all, there's really sort of 3 ways to play each of these games. There's offline. So you're playing on your 360, you're there, and any of your friends who happen to be in the same room with you with their controllers, in that mode, the menus are a little bigger, a little flashier, and you can change all of the options. You can make the game completely unfair if you wanted to. You can turn the blood on or off, you can change the difficulty of the computer-controlled characters, all that kind of stuff. You can change all the stats of the matches, so, the time limit and, disqualification on or off, things like that. There's a few things you can't change, like you can't have a first blood match using divas, unless those divas have been hacked using a save editor, where they're treated as superstars. You also can't make, you can't turn disqualification off on a mixed tag, because the whole point is the women can hit the men, but not the other way around. And of course with, well, normally, a manager, you can't attack someone's manager, because you can turn DQ off. But for the most part, you can change whatever you want offline. Well, when you're playing online, on Xbox Live, there's two different modes. There's player matches, where you have a lot more freedom. If you are hosting a game, if you create a game server, and of course you see a list of all the players who are waiting to play. So if you see, oh, there's 3 Elimination Chamber matches, I'll search for an Elimination Chamber match and go right to it. First one on the list, I don't like it, I can leave. Someone joins your game and you don't like them, you can kick them, and they won't see it unless they exit out and go back in to search again. Well, you can do private matches where you just send an invite to someone on your friends list or the people in your Xbox Live party, and it reloads the game, which is a little slower, but it sends them, it launches the game. So it's best if they haven't launched the game yet. It launches the game and it sends them to that lobby, and then you can launch into the game itself, only with those players that you've invited. That's the private match. Well, that's player match. Now in player match you get a few more options. This is true of 14, 15, and 16, so it's all the same. So I'm just explaining it to you if you're not familiar. Well, in player match, you get a little more leeway because there's no prestige points, there's no ranking, there's no wins and losses recorded. It's just, well, did you win, did you lose? That's it. There's no record. So maybe you can't find a match, you're too good, no one wants to play you, or no one wants to play you because they hate your guts, or you just want to play for fun without any kind of pressure, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose, I'm going to win, I'm going to affect my record, whatever. Or maybe there's too many cheaters, but it seems like most of the players play on ranked, so there is a lot of people there. Don't be afraid to venture out, you may get more competition, of course you may get more cheaters. Occasionally cheaters show up in player. Well, anyway, in player, you can have a match where you have managers, these AI managers that may help you in a match, they may interfere, but if the player attacks them, damages them, they may get disqualified, assuming disqualification is on. Well, you can play with managers in player, but not in ranked. And you can hit the Y button to change the options, similar to single player, in player match. So you could adjust different factors of the game. And in those particular servers, let's say you search on player match, it'll have a list of matches and it'll say customized match. You can click on it and you can check the details. So you can see, oh, they increased the time limit for this, or oh, they made falls count anywhere, or oh, they made this, flaming table is the, winning, condition for this table match, that sort of thing. Well, you can do that in player match. Also, you can have what are called special referee matches, from offline, where you have an additional player. Of course, it can also be an AI. The player can control the referee, and of course they can just do it like a normal referee, make the counts, make the calls for disqualification, that sort of thing. But they can also interfere. They can be unfair. They can attack the wrestlers with impunity. Well, at first. They, of course, have the little status bar that's built up by taunts. And, of course, if you get it high enough, you can do a finisher, or you can do what's called a screw job. So someone's getting, they're in a submission hold, and they haven't given up, but you can just call for the bell and say they've lost. That's, of course, reference to, what happened to Bret the Hitman Hart when he was wrestling Shawn Michaels in the WWF, the Montreal screw job, which apparently was a real incident. He was supposed to win the match, and then he was going to lose later, but he was supposed to lose on his own terms. But the company basically screwed him over and said, well, we're just going to say that you lost, even though in the storyline, watching it, he didn't lose. And of course, that's a classic wrestling swerve, but apparently Bret the Hitman Hart, Bret Hart, the actual person, was not told about this in advance, so he was surprised, and he was angry. And of course, there's all kinds of stories. But you get to recreate that with a special referee if you want. Now, if you do too much, of course, your bar is depleted, the referee is ejected and replaced with an AI referee, who of course will be fair, just like in the regular matches. So that special referee, well, you can only do that in player match. In ranked, you can't do that. It'd be just too easy to cheat. Another feature of player match that you may not know about is that if you want to, in 14, 15, and 16, you could have, like, my friend and I could be on a tag team, let's say, and we could face a tag team of AI characters. So we could just be fighting against the computer together. A co-op, type of match. Well, in ranked, it's different, because in ranked, no special referees, no managers, and you have to have at least one human player on each team. So you would have to have, like, I would have to be on a team, and I could have a computer partner, and then my friend could be on the other team and have a computer partner. Now, sometimes people help each other out. They'll say, well, I'll let you win, and you can let me win. In a ranked match, that's called boosting. That's a form of cheating. It's not allowed. People do it anyway, though. Of course, hostility from the VBI clan, or VB1. And I strongly suspect, the LCS clan, Jarhead and all these guys, they cheat by boosting. Anytime you look at the leaderboards and you see, oh, someone has the maximum points possible in the game, and they have thousands of wins and hardly any losses, are they really that good? Well, let's see, the game's only been out a month or maybe a couple of weeks. How did they do that? Well, let's see what matches they got in. Oh, a handicap match. Interesting. So they played against 3 other people, and they just happened to win every time. And the people they played, could those people have been in their clan as well? Interesting. So that's cheating. But anyway, so people still cheat despite, the lack of those modes. But it just makes it a little bit harder, I suppose. There's no interference, there's no title matches. But anyway, all of that is the same in 14, 15, and 16. Now, let's see. Well, in 2K15, some of the details of these ranked matches have changed. Now, of course, I mentioned before that in the player match, you can change the different, whatever you want to call them, features of the match, the little bits and pieces. You can change the options. Well, in ranked, you're stuck with a default option for each one. So it's a little more limited, but it's designed to be more fair, less open to exploitation by people who want to, get wins cheaply and easily. Of course, they can still, get computer opponents that are very powerful. They could still use hacked moves and so forth. But anyway, in ranked match, in 15, some things have changed, and this is carried over to 16. For example, I'll just give an example. The steel cage match. Now, the steel cage match in 2K14, well, how do you win? Well, you can either climb over the cage and escape, climb over the fence, which, of course, it's a mini game, and, of course, if your opponent has any energy left, they can go up and just grab you and pull you down right away. In group matches, you have to keep track of, who's running around, because people can, oh, those 2 guys are fighting, I'm going to escape now and win, or whatever. Well, and there's also the cage door. And how you do that is you have them in the lower left corner as you're facing the screen, and you throw your opponent into the corner, and if they're dazed, dizzy, stunned, or whatever, you press A, and you automatically go into this little cutscene where you try to slowly crawl through the door. It looks kind of silly, actually, and the other person's crawling after you. Well, and then you just have to keep hitting the button. It's like climbing over the wall, but you're both doing it, if that makes sense. Well, if you succeed, you win. Well, anyway, that is the steel cage. Now, in 2K 15 and 16, they've changed it so that those win conditions are only in place for the one-on-one match. Let's say, anyway, steel cage match, well, what are the win conditions? You can pin people, or you could submit them. So this is in ranked. You can pin and submit people in cage matches. Now, of course, in the regular show, of course, they have had cage matches where people have pinned each other and that sort of thing. Sometimes they forget and they try to pin someone. Oh, you're supposed to climb over. Well, so I guess that gives you a little extra chance. Let's say you're tired of trying to climb the walls. You can just pin them. So that's in a 3-way. Also with a 4-way, fatal, well, let's see, I should change that. Gets a little confusing. In the triple threat, you can climb over the cage to win, or you can pin or submit your opponent. This is different than 14, where it was just climb over or escape from the door. I think in 14, with the group matches, when it was more than 2, you couldn't escape through the door, but you still had to climb over. That's how you would win, unless you changed it in single player or changed it in player match to a different win condition. But by default in ranked, you have no choice. You can still pin or submit them. And I wondered if, maybe with a save editor you could hack, the match conditions, but you can't. Well, it's probably a good thing, because otherwise people could hack all kinds of things if they wanted. So now with a 4-way steel cage match in 15 or 16, you still can't escape from the cage door. You can still climb over, and actually that's the way to win. In a 4 or 6 person steel cage match, you have to climb over to win. So that is the same as 14. But they basically just modified the triple threat and the triple threat to be you can pin or submit. And I believe actually, I think in the 4-way you can also pin and submit people. But the 6 person you definitely cannot. So I may have to correct myself on that. But just the way it is in 14 is one way, and 15 and 16 is another. So it's kind of a long-winded explanation there. Let's see, what else? Okay, well, I think I've pretty much covered the changes for 15 that are relevant. If I think of some others, I may add them. But that's the main thing. Now, moving on to 2K16 for the Xbox 360 to talk about the changes. Now, as far as multiplayer is concerned, online play and everything, it's basically the same as 15. So those changes that were made in 15 have carried over. But there are a few things that I want to say that are different. Now, with the community creations that's limited, to those ranks and everything, once again, there's this thankful bug, glitch, where the first time you go in, you can download as much as you want. And if you exit out and come back, now you're limited. Well, this limit is 20 downloads every 24 hours instead of 10. So it's a little nicer that they increased that. But otherwise, everything else appears to be the same. So it's a shame, because in 14, you could download and upload as much as you wanted. That really encouraged creativity. Whereas here, I noticed in 16 that, something I should say. Oh, yes. When it comes to 2K15, the cheating. Now, in 14, there were people who would hack the move sets. So basically, or hack special moves. What they would do is they would have a taunt, but instead of, do a taunt where the character, would do a little, hand motion or something, and while they're doing that, they're vulnerable. Of course, if they succeed in the whole animation, they get a little bit of boost to their momentum bar, which of course enough momentum you can do signature moves and then finishes, so it's a good thing to have. Of course, people abuse it. They run out of the ring and just spam the taunt button. They just keep taunting and taunting until they have 3 finishes, and then they run back into the ring and boom boom boom, hit you with them. A great strategy for single player, very annoying in multiplayer. It kind of forces other people to either gang up on them or spam taunt themselves. Well, anyway, in 2K, in all of the games really, one of the hacks, the cheats that people would use, which I counted quite a bit, was that their taunts are replaced by moves. And the thing is, a taunt is not meant to be reversed, because it's not an offensive move. So basically, it fooled the system into thinking that, you have this move, but it can't be blocked, and it has no, you don't aim it. So a character could be on the other side of the arena, and they do this taunt, and it launches into a move that hits you all the way on the other side. You teleport and warp through, right through the ring and do it. It's very glitchy. Sometimes it could, cause the game to have problems. But these unstoppable moves. And sometimes, if the person wasn't doing it right, maybe there's a pause in between, you could quickly hit them with a finisher. But there's no way you can kick a person out of the game once the game is started. Some people claim to be able to do that, through some kind of, scripts or something, some kind of hacking tools, which of course are totally against the terms and agreement for Xbox Live. But I never saw any of those myself, nor would I want to mess with them. But even if a person disconnected, of course they're replaced by AI, in the game, that computer might accidentally use a taunt at some point and do that unstoppable move. Of course, they wouldn't know to keep doing it over and over to try to annoy everyone and get a cheap win with no effort. But anyway, there was a very common hack, as they called it. People would distribute these hacked movesets or hacked characters, and they'd put them on community creations very cleverly and say, the description, instead of saying, oh, this is, my version of John Cena or whatever, they would just say taunt. Or they'd say use pad. Or they'd say not a hack. And of course you download this and then boom, you've got hacks. And one time I was stuck with a character by accident that had these hacks. I tried, taunting just for once, and then suddenly I did this crazy move. I was like, whoa, wait a second. And I didn't want the players to turn against me, so I basically let them win. So I suppose that's boosting by letting someone win, but what other choice did I have? Otherwise, everyone would say, oh, you're a cheater, let me report you. It's like, no, I downloaded this character, I didn't realize it was a cheat. So I went in and I completely replaced the moveset and fixed it. Because it was a nice looking creative wrestler. I thought it was very good, but unfortunately the author had put in those cheats. I think I may have gone back and, gave it a bad review because of that. And of course you can also flag those as cheat characters. Sometimes people upload inappropriate things. But anyway, those cheats, that was one cheat. Another cheat was the hack pin or the freeze pin. And basically what it was is you would roll up your opponent and you would just both be frozen in that animation. So it would count 1, 2, 3, done, they're defeated. But it was very silly in these group matches, these elimination matches, because the match wouldn't end, so you just see these two characters, just locked in a pin, just sitting there, and they both leave the game, and they're just these characters stuck. And you could punch them, you could hit them with chairs, you could dive on top of them. You couldn't break it up. It would just stay there forever. Very annoying. And supposedly there was another one where you could unfreeze them, but very, very annoying. It was basically designed by someone to get cheap, instant wins in normal matches. And it's possible that some of these boosters, some of these people on the leaderboards with incredibly, impossibly high scores did that using these things, because you could win a match, instantly. Cheats. Now let's say you pin someone right at the beginning of a match. Was a glitch in 2K14, which was fixed towards the end of its life, where basically you had a one-on-one steel cage match, or any of the other variations, where you have to climb over the cage. Well, you could Irish whip or hammer throw the person, throw them into the turnbuckle, and you may have had to lift them up on top of the turnbuckle, but you could just throw them into the turnbuckle, and they'll be stunned there, actually stunned there for quite a while. And while they're stunned, you just climb right out of the cage and you win. You could win in 10 seconds. Very silly. Now, of course, if you win that quickly in a ranked match, you get 0 points. You get a win, but you get 0 points. Of course, consider that you also get a loss if you disconnect, whether your internet service provider kicked you off or you disconnected, you rage quit on purpose. But anyway, so that was a glitch, but they kind of fixed it. They made it so that you didn't stay there quite so long, so you had a chance actually to pull them down. Of course, if they're damaged, you can do the same thing. Well, there's that problem there. I want to say about ranked match prestige points for 2K14 versus 15 and 16. Well, in 2K14, let's say you're having a ranked match against another player online, and you're beating each other up, you're throwing each other around and smashing each other through tables and hitting each other with chairs and doing finishers and whatever. Let's say the other player is just beating you up and throwing you around, and you're not really doing much, you're just getting beat up the whole time. But you're surviving. You're maybe kicking out of pins or submissions, you're reversing a few things, you're not really getting any offense in, but you're surviving a long time. If they beat you too quickly, they would get 0 points because you didn't put up an effort. You didn't even try to kick out of a pin. You didn't even try to stop a submission hold. They would get 0 points. Whereas, let's say you're fighting, you went the distance, even though you lost. At the end, of course, they would have a huge score. Let's say they get 1,000 or 2,000 points, but you would get a token amount of points. You might even get half of what they had. Let's say they were a higher rank than you. So you could get a lot of points losing to good players if you stuck it out. And that would discourage people from quitting too early because, hey, you could still get some points. You'll get a loss, but you'll get some points, and eventually you can go up in a rank and be on the leaderboards. Well, that changed. I first noticed it in 2K16. I believe it's also the same in 15, is that the points are much lower. So rather than having just 0 points, and if you lost pretty quickly to someone, you could get like 250 points. In 2K16, it's not uncommon if you lose a match to see you got, 50 points or 95 points. And you look at the match back, and all you did was maybe you threw a punch, or you threw them to the ground one time. But you could be fighting, and they beat you, But it's all based on the offense that you put up. So if you're not damaging them back, your score is going to be almost nothing. So that's a difference in the later games from the first one, there, from 14. I think the way the prestige points work in these ranked matches in the newer games, I think was maybe designed to discourage boosting. Because let's say you had a clan or guild or league or whatever, and two guys are working together and saying, okay, I'm going to beat you in this match and we're both going to get points. Really it'd be like, now, well, you're going to get hardly anything and I'm going to get a ton of points. So that would maybe discourage people from doing that. Now, of course, there's other ways they could cheat. The other person could leave early and just let the other person beat up the computer forever. They could create another account still. I mean, there's so many ways, unfortunately, that people can cheat. Of course, these are people that are paying for Xbox 360, or maybe their parents are. And they're just, spending hours and hours cheating at a game just to get on a high score list that only other players can see, and only, inexperienced or younger players would be impressed by. So, very silly. And it's not like it's the real name, they're really famous. It's just whose hostility? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. All we know is he's got the top score in every game and he cheated every time. Oh well. And he's got his clan tag there, so why would you trust anyone in that clan? Ever. So anyway, yeah, I just see that they're hosting a game. I just breeze right by, just ignore it, just leave. Don't even play them. But anyway, so that's how those points work. So really, in 15 and 16, you really have to be on your game. You really have to stick it to your opponent. You really have to gain an advantage and win if you want to get points. So it might actually encourage people to leave because they think, well, I'm losing. I might as well quit. I'm not going to get very many points anyway. Of course, then they get a loss. Of course, you can get a loss just for getting kicked off. Something I've noticed, it may be the quality of the service. In 16 at least, not sure about 15, far fewer disconnections. In 14, I noticed I would often get disconnected from a game. It would say attempting to reconnect, and then it would fail. Of course, you may have been playing someone in another country that had a lot of lag. Or if you were doing something online, someone else was on your network and slowing it down for you. That could happen as well. Well, I've just noticed that the quality of the service is just a little bit better in the newer games, and that may just be because, they're, it's a new game, and so their sources that they use to keep it going are higher quality. So faster, whatever. So I've noticed that I don't get disconnected. I don't think I've been disconnected at all, actually. Sometimes other people get disconnected from me, but in 14 I would get disconnected quite often. Whereas in 15 and 16, or 16 especially, I haven't noticed it. In 15, I have noticed cheats, online cheating, hacking as they call it, in 2K15. Now, you can't create custom special moves, so those can't be hacked, but that's not what people were doing anyway. People still were creating, hacked movesets, with these fake taunts, and they would put those in the community creation so anyone could download them. So it's not as if, oh, I'm a big scary hacker, I know about computers and security, I can beat you because I've cracked the system. No, these are people that all they did is they just went online, they just downloaded something, and now they can win matches without any skill. They just hit the same button over and over. And it can't be counted. It's almost impossible. So that was... that's still around, unfortunately. But in 15, there was this cheat called the freeze, where you could just be touching another player, like you're going to grapple them or something, even the referee, and you could freeze them, and they just kind of get frozen in this pose. but then you could also unfreeze them. So that's annoying, and that apparently is very common. And there are people who even have the cheat on their character ready to go in case someone else hacks them so they can hack them back. Kind of silly if you ask me, because it's basically saying, well, it's okay to hack because I'm a good guy and I'm using it. Rather, better just not to use it at all. Just refuse. You know, anyone can do it. Of course, the thing is, these hacks can also be used offline as well. So you see someone, oh, they've got all the achievements for the game. Wow, they must be good. Not necessarily. They could have cheated offline too. They could have beaten, you know, The Undertaker, John Cena by freezing him. No skill involved at all there. So really you can't trust it. Of course, the player themselves know that they cheated. They know that they didn't expend any effort. And just some strangers on the internet see their high score. Who cares? But whatever. Just play games for fun, I say, because that's really what it's about. Anyway, so that's that for cheating. Unfortunately, it exists. As far as the cheating in 2K16 online, I have not actually seen any. Now, I've only played about, well, as of this video, maybe 250 ranked matches, and I've never seen anyone cheat. Now, of course, it's always possible that someone has, you know, messed with their character's stats to make them more powerful than they would already appear, and that's very hard to detect. I've heard some players call that God mode. I don't know if that's an official name, it's just what someone calls it, where they've boosted their stats beyond what you're normally allowed to have. Like, let's say you could only have, you know, your striking power, you know, just made up example of 85. Well, maybe you made it 255. So now your strikes do way more damage than they ever were intended to do. Well, if that's the case, you know, you could look at the person's stats before and after the match, and it wouldn't show that. It would just say 85, because that's the highest it can display. Well, so that's a cheat. And a person could do this. Now, I think the amount of damage they did, of course, with these moves would make it easier for them to win, but they could also do more damage to your character and get more points. So that's another way that these boosting cheaters on the leaderboards could be getting their points, is by illegally modifying their stats, as they say. Of course, you can modify the character stats with the Accelerator DLC up to 100, but only up to 100. And of course, every category is not going to be 100. If they all said 100, that's a cheat. But they may show just the maximum and actually be higher than that. Of course, now if the player movement was insanely high, they were just zipping around the ring, that would be an indication that they had modified one of their stats. But as long as they didn't modify that one, how would anyone know? So detecting this God mode, because how do you tell a cheater from someone who's just really good, or a really laggy game where it's hard to tell? Well, they can make it, of course, if their moves would be almost impossible to reverse. If, you know, those defensive powers were too high. It might also be that their own, you know, resistance to damage would be very high, which would mean you'd have to do more damage to beat them. Now, let's say they had 255 instead of 100 for a certain stat. Well, it's possible to still beat them. If you knew someone was cheating, you could just do a lot more, just hurt them a lot more, or gang up on them. If you're playing, let's say, a fatal four-way and you realize someone's cheating, the three of you could get together and just beat that guy up and defeat him. First one to beat him wins, or eliminate him and then just go about as normal. It's kind of a guerrilla tactic, as they say, but there you go. What do you do about these cheaters other than report them? 2K doesn't seem to do much about reporting people through the in-game app. Of course, you can report them there through Xbox Live. And of course, if they got too many complaints, they might lose their subscription or something like that. They'd have to pay to come back. But anyway, I just prefer just not to play. If I know someone's a cheater, I'm just not going to play them. Or be on their team to avoid being associated with them and suspected of cheating myself. So there you go. But it just seems like there's not been the cheating in 16 that I've seen in 15 and 14. It may just be that it's taking time for whoever creates these things to create them. Hopefully it takes them, you know, forever and they don't get it done. Or 2K actually fixes it, which I doubt they would, unfortunately. I don't have much faith in them at this point regarding those sorts of things. They've fixed a few things. But the Stat cheating, of course, will always be a problem, unfortunately. Now, if you play the fair fight, it will ensure, supposedly, that your total doesn't go over 100. And I'm not sure how strictly that actually works, but supposedly it does. So, if you see someone who's really good at fair fights, they could still be boosting, but at least they're not cheating in the other ways, hopefully, because they're not allowed to modify anything on their character except for the threads, the colors, if they wanted to. They can't use anything but the official characters, whether downloadable content or part of the game as basic. So there you go. Although I think in 14 you still could use a save editor hacking tool to enable the managers, for example, NPCs, and play as them if created content was off, because they're, of course, part of the game. And you could update their stats, so that's kind of a cheat there, because you could, take Lillian Garcia and make her 100. Of course, she would just be like a regular character, but none of the default characters are up to 100. Now, in a fair fight, I think it would default the stats to 76 if you tried to go over, but I don't know that for sure. But they've taken some steps to address cheating, just unfortunately not enough, really. But for whatever reason, 16 doesn't have the cheaters, so I hope it stays that way. I have noticed in community creations, though, if you go online, you'll see all of these hacked moveset, hacks, hack, all these things. But you'll notice if you go into them and you look at the reviews, they'll say fake, doesn't work, not really a hack. And I thought, well, why would people do this? Because before, of course, people were trying to encourage cheating by distributing these hacks, for their clan or whatever to cheat. Well, now I think because of the ranking system, I suspect, this is my personal theory, the ranking system for creations is that people are desperate to get downloads. And they know that out there people are kind of like secretly want to cheat. And so they say, oh look, a hacked moveset, download it. And they download it, oh, it didn't work. Haha, fooled you, I got a download. So it could be that they're just doing it to get attention, just to get downloads. So kind of an unintended side effect of this ranked system is people make fake creations to try to attract downloads so they can go up in rank and so they can download more for themselves. But I'm glad they're fake. I'm glad they don't work, because that's certainly annoying. So, anyway, enough of that. Now I want to get into some of the differences with 2K16. Now, of course, it's carried over everything from 15, but there are some differences. You can do the custom user playlist, custom soundtracks again for your wrestler entrances, thank goodness. Now, of course, in all of these games, if you were listening to custom music, you would hear it through your speakers, but the other players online would just hear silence. The only way to get around that is to, take your microphone headset and put it up to the speaker, or the music. You could have some music playing on a radio and put it up there, and then the players would hear it over your microphone unless they had you muted. Now, of course, in 2K16, you still can't create custom stories, but you do have custom soundtracks back. Otherwise, really, the options are all the same as 15. Now, in 15, you had a couple of things changed. I believe in the creation suite for custom, characters. Let's say you're creating a superstar. Of course, the superstar templates, the faces, that was kind of an extra thing. You could have, Randy Orton. His head could not be changed at all. You couldn't put a tattoo. You couldn't color it green. It'd just be his head would be exactly the same. You could do his body. You could put different clothes on the body, scars, tattoos, anything you wanted that the character didn't have, and then you could save that as an alternate attire. So let's say you're playing an online game, they go, oh, he just picked Randy Orton, so what? But then when the match starts, they say, oh, look, it's a totally new attire. His head looks the same, but his body, his clothes look different. And of course, you can still change his moveset and his entrance animation. So that was very different than the Superstar Threads, which was very disappointing, where all you could do was change the colors of, the outfit that the default wrestler had. You couldn't, put new clothes on The Undertaker. You could just, oh, his outfit is green now instead of black, or whatever. But of course, that was a DLC extra in 14. In 15, it's part of the game. In 16, it's part of the game. So there you go. Now, with the creations, of course, I mentioned that in 2K15 there's a couple more logo designs that you can put on the character's body, you know, new WWE logos, new slogans, whatever. Just a few, just a handful of new things. 16 is the same way, just a handful of new things. Now, 16, Hulk Hogan is removed from the game because of his, you know, scandalous behavior. So people have created him, but it isn't exactly right because it doesn't have, you know, the exact moves. I think his taunts were all removed from the game. There's similar taunts that other wrestlers have, but you could sort of recreate him, but you'd have your work cut out for you. Before, they just handed it to you on a silver platter. And of course, other wrestlers that are not, you know, part of WWE anymore, like CM Punk or Kurt Angle or Jeff Hardy, even if they're on bad terms, all their stuff is there. But Hulk Hogan, they just dropped him like a hot potato, you know. It's like, no way. So, he's in the game, sort of, but just not as an official character. Now, in 2K15, they did remove the Hulk Hogan stuff from the downloads, but you could still get him as part of one of the DLC packs, the single player. So you could, and with the, there are other ways to unlock him, which probably are not, you know, officially approved. But anyway, 16, no Hulk Hogan, no CM Punk officially, but you can recreate him very easily. No AJ Lee. So anybody who's on the outs, as it were, with WWE, you know, working for a competing company, they said something bad about the company in public, or they've, you know, been involved in some public scandal, they're not part of the game anymore. But of course, people can create them, and the community creation is very small. But anyway, 2K16, as far as gameplay modes, it's pretty much the same as 15, but there is one major difference. Well, I consider it major. I suppose you might not. But weapons. Okay, now the weapons, I mentioned the black baseball bat from 15. Well, in 16, I noticed weapons don't break as often. Isn't that interesting? Well, previously in the games, well, here's a little minor change I forgot to mention. In 2K14, let's say you have a steel chair. It's a black, you know, folding chair. You hit someone over the head with it, a little red spot appears on the chair, so like a little blood spot where you hit them. And normally, you know, you hit them like 3 times, let's say, 3 solid hits, not to the legs, but to the head or whatever. You throw the chair down, and if you try to pick it up again, you notice you can't because the chair has been broken up into its constituent parts. It's not bent up and mangled, it's just fallen apart. And the same thing occurs if you know, you're looking at ringside, there's a couple folding chairs set up like someone could sit on them. If you whip the person, if you throw them into those chairs immediately break. The other way to break a chair is if you you wedge it in the corner by the post, and you whip the person into the post. They smash through it with their head. It looks very painful. You know, of course, it's fake. You know, it's wrestling, but they smash through it, and that breaks the chair immediately. So those are the ways to break the chairs. Well, in 15, it's exactly the same, except the little blood spot is missing when you hit the person over the head. And of course, online in all of these games, there's no blood at all. You know, normally, if you get their head, the character's head, to critical, to red, and you hit them one more time, the screen flashes quickly red, like red flash, and then you'll see, you know, a little drip, and you'll see, like, look on the face, you'll see some red. Now, of course, if you're using a diva, they don't bleed. But, of course, if it's a hacked diva that's been, you know, allowed to play in superstar matches, which is technically against the rules, but, you know, there's hardly any women wrestlers in these games. And who plays diva matches, unfortunately? So, I don't have a problem with that, but some people might, and I think they did it just because they thought, well, you know, we don't want to have men fighting women unless it's a mixed tag, where the women can hit the men, but not vice versa. That's a whole big rant on its own. But nevertheless, they censored it a little bit. And that's been a gradual process. You know, different games have had different, you know, restrictions on male-female interactions in the game. But normally, you know, if a man hits a woman in the game, the man gets disqualified. Well, anyway, so this blood completely gone from online play. Even if it's turned on, no one can see it. But even the blood on the chair is gone. Also in 2K15, you know, all the weapons are the same, really. But in 2K16, it is different from 15 and 14. Now, if you hit someone with a chair 3 times, you throw it down, because there's no blood spot, the chair's fine. You can pick it up and keep using it. The only way you can break chairs, I don't think even whipping them into chairs breaks them. The only way you can break a chair is if you wedge it in the corner and, whip them into it and smash through it. Of course, you can still break the, well, of course, if you throw someone to the stairs, it doesn't really break the stairs, it just dislodges the, metal steps. Tables can still be broken, of course. And ladders could still be broken. It's harder to break a ladder, but if it's propped up against something and you slam them just right, it bends it. And of course, don't worry, if it's a ladder match, the ladders will respawn, regenerate. Tables match, tables regenerate as you need them. Because of course, you put yourself through a table, it doesn't count. You have to put your opponent through. Anyway, so the chairs don't break so easily. Now, let's see what else. The guitar. The guitar normally was a weapon that you could either pull out from under the ring if you've modified, your settings in the Extreme Rules, ring type. If you modify the settings, you can pull out the guitar, or you can grab it from the crowd. There's a guy in the crowd that has it. Well, normally in 15 and 14, one hit from the guitar smashes it. It's gone. Of course, another one may appear. You can only have a limited number of weapons out on the ring at a time, so that's why the breakable weapons are nice, because you can break a weapon and then go get another one. Otherwise, you could just go under the ring and just start tossing out weapons until you've reached the maximum, and then no one else can choose. Because it's the first one, first come, first serve, you choose the weapons. But you keep smashing people over the chair, and it stays. Now, there's another way to get rid of weapons. If it's a Hell in the Cell, match, you have that big steel, structure. If you use a finisher to smash someone through the door on the right-hand side, you can pick up a weapon and just throw it or walk outside the ring with it, and that weapon will drop and disappear. So that's one way to get rid of weapons. Kind of strange. Just to summarize, yes, so 2K14 and 2K15, you can break weapons as you normally do. In 16, it's much harder. The only way to break a chair is to wedge it in the corner and slam someone into it with an Irish whip move, or, if you're in Hell in a Cell, to take the weapon outside of the cage and drop it. It disappears. And with a guitar, normally it's a one-hit smash, it breaks. Well, in 2K16, you have to slam someone on top of the guitar. And I think in 14, not sure about 15, in 14 it sort of like cartoonishly looked like it just kind of flattened. The animation now, it looks like it's just kind of like broken in pieces, but it's still sort of held together. And that's in 16. So you have to slam someone on top of the guitar. Now the trash can, you could only break it by slamming someone on top of it. And I think even after it's been flattened that way, you can't get another one, but you can still keep slamming people on top of that metal, that crumpled metal, and it still does a little bit extra damage. Could be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. So really, the tables still break, the ladders still break, but those chairs are just a little bit sturdier, and those guitars a little bit sturdier. It looks a little funny at first, because, you're so used to a guitar just smashing to a million pieces instantly. Of course, in wrestling, they use a little, destructible charge that makes it explode, or they use, the weakest, thinnest possible wood. It's like a breakaway, wood, like a breakaway chair, breaks instantly. Of course, even with the steel chairs, they use very soft metal, and of course they make it look like it's a lot worse than it is, because a real chair shot to the head is going to hurt a lot. Could give you a concussion, cause you to bleed, but if a hit to the shoulder is going to hurt but not do nearly the damage if you just pull back and no follow through. I still wouldn't take a chair shot to the head even if all those things were in place. But in the game, you just have these really brutal matches, so there's no blood, but you can just beat someone on the head with a chair over and over again. So there you go. So teach your children the difference between fantasy and reality, because the game company isn't really helping. Anyway, so there you go. Those are pretty much the differences between 14, 15, and 16. So just keep in mind, 14, no more online play. 15, going offline, May 2016. 16, going offline, May 2017. And as far as the next-gen versions, I can't really say. I'm not really too interested, honestly. Even if I had an Xbox One or PS4, I really wouldn't care that much, because it sounds like it's a very different game, much slower paced, a lot fewer features, better graphics, and a kind of boring My career mode, the ability to scan someone's face, which, it's kind of so-so, a newer feature, still developing technology-wise, but it really just doesn't look that interesting to me. So, there you go. Thanks for listening. I may have other details, but it's just kind of like little boring, nitpicky things, really. It's basically the same game over and over, and it's kind of a waste of potential because they could have done so much more with these wrestling games, so much more with the career idea. A career, and online title defenses, features that we've had in past games, like brawling out into the city. I mean, there's so many different things they could have done. Maybe more than 6 wrestlers at a time. How about that? One of these WWF Royal Rumble in the arcades and the Dreamcast, they had 9 wrestlers in the ring at a time, and you could have a 9-person, backstage brawl there, too. The backstage brawls are much more extensive in previous games. In 2006, you had parking lots and bar room, you had all these kinds of things. What about a Royal Rumble with 20 wrestlers in the ring? There's so many things they could have done with these new technology, but they chose not to. So that's too bad. One other difference and feature that I really, really appreciate about 2K15 and 2K16 as opposed to 14 is that with 14, you could buy the game used, or maybe your friend just said, here, you can have my game. You can have it for free. You found it on the street. Oh, look at this game. I can play it for free. Whatever. You found it in the garbage. Here's a game. If let's say you want to play online, well, you have to buy what's called an online pass. So you have to have an Xbox Live account, and you have to buy this $10 online pass just to be able to play online matches and access the community creations. Now, let's say you don't have the online pass. The whole reason for this is because when you buy the game, the little tiny manual that's like, 3 or 4 pages hardly tells you anything about the game. You have to actually go online and download this PDF file that has the full manual. That's only for 14. 15 and 16 have the same problem. That little manual, the paper manual that came with the game, has a code. You enter that code and you can play online for free. But if you got the game used, that code is not going to be there, or it was used already by the previous person. So you have to buy an online pass for $10. Or you could do a free trial for 7 days. You're allowed to play, well, you could sign up for it and not use it, but you sign up for it and you get up to 7 days where you can play online matches, but you can't download community creations at all. It's really too bad. So once that trial is up, that's it. 15 and 16 do away completely with the online pass. So if you buy the game used, even if you got it for 50 cents, or your friend handed it to you and said you can have this forever for free, well, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay to play online. You can just start right up, and that's a great thing because so many other games, most games don't have extra layer of subscription. You're already paying for your internet service. You already bought the game. You already paid for Xbox Live Gold so that you could play online. And now they're asking you to pay even more to play online? What is this, a subscription-based service? And they're going to cancel it after 2 years? That's ridiculous. So for 15 and 16, to soften the blow, I think they made it free to play online, as long as you have Xbox Live Gold. And I'm good with that. I like that. I think that was a very positive change. And that's probably the best change that they've made. And I noticed with 2K15, the single player, very disappointing. I'm not a big, huge fan of, NXT circa 2013, or the one wrestler who's still not on the main roster yet. You really want to see him, go up against John Cena, you can do that. I'm not really too interested. But the DLC packs they released for 15 are much more single-player focused. So they really tried to pull out the stops and say, you've got these rivalries, you've got these historic matches, with the Ultimate Warrior, you've got Mark Henry's career, Randy Orton and John Cena, all this kind of stuff. John Cena, of course, is all over the place, very overexposed in 2K15. I noticed in 2K16, John Cena kind of fades into the background. He's not so big. He has just one character, really. Only one attire. His entrance is kind of subdued. It's not really that big a deal. Of course, he's not on the cover anymore, so I'm not sure if he's nearing retirement or they're just having him step aside a little bit in the game world to let these other wrestlers, shine a little bit. Of course, it's all about Stone Cold Steve Austin in 16. And honestly, the 2K Showcase, the Austin 316, series. Not that interesting. I played a little bit of it in 2K16 offline, just not that interesting, really. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, this famous character, but he's sort of been overexposed too over the years. I mean, everybody talks about the Attitude Era and how great it was, and they get into some of the stuff like, oh, it's stunning, Steve Austin, the Ringmaster, his time in ECW and WCW, but it's a lot of stuff we've seen before, and just not a lot of new things. It's just more matches. So I suppose when the game goes offline and there's no more online support, what will you have left? The single player. But how many times are you going to play through that? Well, I got all the achievements, I won everything on the highest difficulty, now what? Well, I want to play with my friends. So I'm not that big on the wrestling game single player. It's something you play once and kind of forget about. So that it is what it is. But there's more created content coming out for 2K16. Supposedly, if you buy the season pass now, you actually don't get very much with it. You get the accelerator and I think a pack of 30 extra moves / taunts, none of which I thought were that great, to be honest. And of course you get those pre-order exclusives. You get the Terminator and Terminator 2. Ooh, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. For some reason in this game, I don't think he ever wrestled. He was just a bodybuilder and a movie star and a politician. But there you go. For some reason, he's in the game. Of course, a lot of people created, Terminator characters. Maybe they thought, well, it's our turn to cash in. We can have an official one. Honestly, the graphics are slightly improved in 2K15 and 16, but just slightly. And some of the choices with the character models, like the, Biker Undertaker and the Ultimate Warrior, they look a little strange. I suppose they were working from photos to try to make them look a little more realistic, lifelike, but they just look a little strange. I think they looked a little bit cartoony in the game world, but they were adequate and perfectly fine. And they looked tough, they looked scary, they looked like they could do some damage. Ultimate Warrior's hair was kind of strange, a little over the top, like a comic book, a cartoon version of himself. Of course, Ultimate Warrior was in a comic book, a strange one, as fitting his character. But anyway, not a lot has changed from 14 to 16. I've pretty much laid out the differences, and the community is very early in its development, so not a lot of custom creations. Now, as far as 16 goes, that season pass, supposedly all the material will be released by the end of March, I think 2016. So, but it's going offline in May 2017, so think about that. But supposedly the season pass is going to have over 30 new characters. Of course, we don't know if those are attires or what. And I'm sure it won't include any of the wrestlers who are still in the outs with WWE, unless they somehow, get back in their good graces and get back on the TV show, go into the Hall of Fame and all that sort of thing. So don't expect to see Chyna or Kurt Angle or, CM Punk or AJ Lee. They're just not going to be there. Or Hulk Hogan. I sincerely doubt they'll be there. It'd be nice to see them. Of course, Jimmy Snuka with his, recent legal, criminal, ongoing, things. I haven't really checked the status of that, but I doubt that will be resolved in time to put him back in the game if it is ever resolved. Here he's in poor health. Things like that. So you basically have, an expansion to the roster, an expansion to the moves. So similar to 2K14. I didn't really see a lot about... Oh yes, there's going to be some kind of showcase of rivalries, or actually not even rivalries. I think what they're doing is they're just taking wrestlers from the past and pitting them against current wrestlers. So you might have, I think it's Medusa versus, someone from the current Divas roster. So kind of a strange thing, but I guess it's sort of like dream matches or something. So not recreating history, but just, of course, unless on the show they decide to have those types of matchups happen. Kind of fantasy booking. But anyway, not that interesting, to be honest. Most of the wrestlers that I would want to play as will never appear in the game officially. Or someone will create them, or I'll create them myself, and I'll get them for free, as long as the Community Creations is available. Now, I think for 15... possibly for 14, and I'm sure soon for 16. There are some creators who are sort of backing up their creations, protecting their creations by uploading them to the internet. So even if the service were to go down, there could be some crazy way that you could hack these characters back into the game and use them, even if the online support community creations was completely gone. I think that's a good move on their part, because really, let's say you buy this game and you realize, oh, there's no more online support. I really feel cheated. Even if I bought the game for $10 and I can't get any of the features that would normally be there. I can't download anything, because that's half the game. Half the game is playing the wrestling, the other half is downloading stuff that people have created and creating your own stuff and uploading it, sharing it with the world. The roster, it's 100 wrestlers, 120 wrestlers. No, it's actually infinite. Theoretically, it's theoretically infinite, because anyone can create something for the game. But if they shut that off, they shut that down, you're stuck with just what you got, and you get bored with it faster. Because really, it's all about the options, the creativity. So I've rambled on and on and on and on about these games. But I wanted to say at the end here is that regarding the 3 games, of course, I own 14 already. But 15 and 16, 15, I think the current price I've seen it for is about $20. Now, there's some stores that are still selling it for 30 or 40, which is ridiculous. Usually these sports games, they treat it as a sports game. It's really like a fighting game. Wrestling is, not sport. Sorry, I am a fan. It's not really baseball or soccer, football, or whatever you want to call it. But 15 is about $20, let's say. And you can play it until May 2016. So there's that. But then 2K16, to wrap up here, which game should I buy? Well, if you've had 14, you've kind of played the best already, to be honest. Especially if you've gotten a chance to have sort of an online, experience with it. 15, it looks like there's there's a lot of cheating online, let's be honest. It's a different type of cheating than we've seen before, but it's pretty much there. The game is about $20 you can find it for, maybe a little bit less, but that's about it. You'll get a used copy, but you can play it online, and really there's no manual you're missing out on. That's another thing. If you've got 15, you need to refer back to the 2K14 online manual. Everything's the same, really, except that, you can't create custom stories, really. Now, in 15, of course, you have that lack of custom music, and you're going to get tired of the jukebox very quickly, I assure you, even if you like those songs. With 16, you'll have a little bit longer time, because, it won't be going offline until, they say May 2017. But the community creations are less. Cheating seems virtually non-existent at this point, so that's a good thing. Other than, of course, your usual boosters, sore losers, and people who spam moves and sort of thing. The inability to break weapons, a little different. But more or less, you're going to be paying about $45. Some places still selling it for $60, but you can pay about $45 for 2K16 at this time. So more expensive game. It'll be online a little bit longer, but the community creations are less. The DLC, is still ongoing to see what that will be, but it sounds like we have no idea what the characters are going to be. They may just be more attires for, existing wrestlers. And I doubt that there'll be any new, really big, amazing changes. You may just get a few wrestlers back that were missing from the previous games. So that's that. So the choice is yours, really. If it were up to me, if someone got me a copy of 2K16 for free, I rented it for free, but if someone got me the game, I wouldn't turn it down. I'd keep playing it. I've quite enjoyed it. It's almost as good as 14. A few things are better, a few things are worse. Some things I'm indifferent to. They're just changes. So there you go. I wish you could create stories. I don't like the community creations restriction. I think that's silly, and I don't like the planned obsolescence of these online servers. You have games that are 8 years old that are still playable online. You can still play the Halo games. You can still play, Army of Two. You can play all these other games, really. Most of the games. You don't have to pay anything extra. You just get online and play them. Sure, the communities are tiny. But let's say my friend and I have this game and we want to play it, either for the first time or just play it again out of nostalgia. And maybe we're not, living in the same house. We can't just feasibly sit down and play it on our couch. So I think they do fans a disservice by discontinuing it every 2 years or every 1 3/4 years, depending on it. It looks like 13 was supported the longest. I think almost 26 months. 14 about 24 months, and then these last 2 games about 20 months or even less, depending on how you calculate it. Certain countries get the game a little bit later, but it's too bad. So anyway, that was my comparison video of WWE 2K14, 15, and 16 for the Xbox 360, and I'll hopefully be recording some other videos in the future. Of course, there's always more things I want to talk about than I have time to do, time and energy. But I thank you for listening, and if I see you online, be sure you bring it, but fight legit, or I'll be mad. So, and you wouldn't want to make me angry in a video game. It's not something that you want to see. So just have fun out there, and just remember, it's just a game, right? It's for fun, not for having a heart attack over. So